morning to all. This is Mahesh Sabnis, and today we are going to talk about Azure SignalR, the service on Microsoft Azure, which is used to simplify the process of adding the real-time functionality to our application, web application, precisely over HTTP. Now, the question arises over here is that what is the real-time communication and why this is needed and how we are going to use it in our application. All these concepts we are going to discuss in this session. By the way, about me, I'm into this field from last almost 22 years. Started my career long back and work with various different technology precisely on Microsoft stack, and then working on the JavaScript full stack also nowadays. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also Microsoft MVP, and I'm also author on the sites on .NETcurry.com, devcurry.com, as well as webnethelper.com. The sites are dedicated to Microsoft application development as well as the JavaScript apps. Rather, I should say the full stack application development, but more inclined to Microsoft, of course, here. I'm also Azure Fundamental certified and doing lots of training and consulting assignments. So this is what about me. Well, now going back to the discussion. SignalR, typically which we use it for the real-time functionality, real-time communication over HTTP. Why this is needed? So honestly speaking, now we are purely into the world of modern application development, which are accessed by our end users, clients, through browsers, or through their devices. The application is going to run inside the browser. Now, what is the meaning of that? Run inside the browser means, like here we are talking about the typical JavaScript client. JavaScript client, which is going to use the browser's runtime to execute our web frontend inside the browser and manage all the life cycle. During this life cycle, it comes with lots of HTTP calls, right? And then these HTTP calls works with typically request reply pattern. Means unless and until we request to the server through the post back mechanism, the response will not be received. Now this request could be either synchronous request or asynchronous request. Majorly like from the Ajax days, we are purely talking about the synchronous request. We use the asynchronous request. So this is an XML HTTP request or HTTP request object, which manage the asynchronous communication to the server. This is what it happens. Then to the modern JavaScript, we have promise object, which actually takes care of monitoring the entire async state. So it makes the request, get the acknowledgement in the form of promise, and then when the server is ready with the response, that response will be collected back by the promise, and then over the subscription, that response is given to the JavaScript client. This is what it does. So here in this case, we are purely working on a request reply pattern. Now, is it real time? No. Fine. You might be getting the data which is there on the database or from the server to the client application. But now the thing is that consider the scenario where we have multiple clients which are talking to the same web server and trying to access the site, right, performing the data operations. So the record which is created by one user, how it will be immediately available to another user. So let's say user one, he create a new record. So he sent the request to create a new record to the server. Server accept that request, process that record, store it into the database. So unless and until the second user doesn't make another request to get the data from the server, the record updated by the user one will not be responded to the user two. This is the fact of HTTP, called as a pure request reply pattern. Now, as the web technology got changed, getting richness from the consumer-oriented applications, there was a thought process which was initiated over there that like, why can't this be real time? Why can't this be made as a real time? And this is not the requirement of today's app development. We need this, or we were having such type of requirement from long back, saying that, okay, this should be accessible to us at any cost in a real time form. Yes, there were some protocols. We are having the socket protocols typically on desktops, and with the help of that, it was possible for us to do that using a socket programming. Socket, purely a mode of an asynchronous communication, a pure mode of async communication, I must say. So over this socket, it was possible for us to have the subscription to the socket. So one socket was been used by multiple concurrent connections. And then when one user is updated, another user was actually being pushed with that notification. So this was a kind of the push notification thing, right? Or architecture of push notification that was implemented over the socket program. But it was still not available on HTTP. And as we have moved towards the modern web application development, where we have all the domains, whether it is finance or e-commerce or logistics or whatever, all these domains, they migrated to the web, and the expectation was that this should be available on web. That was the expectation. And then the need was put across to the software developers, and then it was the responsibility of the software developers to satisfy the need. Here I'd like to give one example. All of you might have used Ola or Uber probably in this lockdown days. You might not be doing travel, but otherwise, like when you want to book an Ola cab or Uber cab, right, on the app you get a map, and then on that map you actually get the travel progress of the cab that you have booked. So currently it has which stage, how much total estimated time that cab will take to reach you. Okay, or if there is a traffic, it actually gives you the traffic, alternative routes, everything it's given to us. That's called as a real time. Or if you have used the app like Swiggy, correct? So like when after you put the order, right, you keep on getting the notification on that app that, okay, the delivery boy or delivery agent is at this place and now how it is traveling. So you get all this information over there. This is real time. And how this is happening? This is happening with the modern HTTP capabilities. Such type of applications are really in need. And to satisfy this type of requirement over there, with the .NET framework, we have been, .NET framework 4.x, we have been provided with the SignalR service. SignalR is a package that was available to us, and it was possible for us to get this integrated with our ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET application. We used to do these things. But now the thing is that we deploy these applications on premises, right, in our own data center. And now what happens is that, like, this is our private data center on premises, so we still have some scalability upper limits on that. Though we have the great caliber server infrastructure, right, hardware, server processing, and like racks and all, but still we are having some upper limit on that. It cannot cross over it. Or rather, it is challenging for us to maintain the scalability, and that too in a real time. The scalability matters a lot. Imagine that Ola says, okay, like, I'm just taking an example. Right, the cab booking service says that, okay, 100 customers or 1,000 customers have already booked the cab. Now that's it. We will not be able to show the movement or real-time traffic movement of that particular cab to you because it's not available. What if that app started saying like this? Naturally, you will stop using such type of application. This was the further thought process to take this SignalR to the next level. And Microsoft have made this available on Azure SignalR Service. You know, the advantage of Azure now, it's not an alien technology to most of you, right? Azure is a great cloud providing from Microsoft, which are having lot many services, right? For your storage, right? Your API app, going serverless, data store services, and so on and so forth. Lot many things are there. And Microsoft now have provided the SignalR service on Azure just to simplify the real-time communication. So in this session, we are actually going to talk about that. So the first thing over here is that it's a definition of the real time. It says that it's a kind of a simultaneous exchange of messages, right, over a telecommunication service. So sender and receiver both can talk at a time simultaneously, right? Example over here is that we do WhatsApp messaging, instant messaging over the WhatsApp, or we use video calls, right, teleconferences. Here also, like the Teams. Okay, right now over here on a Teams, my video or like we can easily communicate over there. Simultaneous communication is possible over here on this. It's called as a real time. So basically, what happens is that both sender and receiver, they can start talking to each other, right? And this server is now responsible to manage the real-time communication across multiple concurrent lines. So what we call it as the simultaneous exchange of the information. Now, this is typically, we do this on premises, right? This is typically we do this on premises. Now, this same real time, when it goes on the web, we call it as the real-time communication for the web, called as web RTC, right? A web RTC. Now, what is this web RTC? So we are now provided the real-time HTTP communication capabilities over the HTTP, right? Or whatever the protocol that we are using in an open standard protocol. And over this, what is now possible here? Over this web RTC, or with the help of this web RTC, what we can do is we can keep on sharing audio, voices, okay, some high size data files, right? We can keep on sharing this information. But now we need to satisfy the browser requirement to use this web RTC. So browser should support it. Now this is very important. Now I'd like to give you a kind of a familiar example. If you have heard about HTML5, all right, HTML5 API system. In HTML5 API system, we had the WebSocket. Right, WebSocket, that is a class available in HTML5 API system. Ultimately, it's a JavaScript class. And now that has some dependencies. Dependency number one is that the HTML page, or I should say the server which is delivering that HTML page, must have the socket service installed with that. So if you go for IIS, typically on Windows operating system, right? I'm a honest Microsoft guy, so I'll actually like to talk about that. So if you go to the IIS 8 onwards, right? So if you go to the control panel of your operating system, like Windows Vista, Windows 7, and like Windows 8, Windows 10, go to the control panel, go to the programs and features. There you expand IIS, and there you will find a checkbox called as a WebSocket support. So what happens is that the moment you do this, the moment you check this WebSocket support, what happens is that we have that the HTML page, which has been delivered by that particular server, it has the capabilities of web RTC communication, right? Web RTC, real-time communication. So HTML5 WebSocket accepts the request, right? Or it generates the request. It will be accepted by our IIS web server. Now, this request is not an HTTP request. This request is made on WSS, right? This is a WebSocket server, and it will be processed by our IIS, and then the response is being generated based upon that. So browser should have this support, right? As well as the hosting environment should have this support. So ultimately, browser must be HTML5 capable, and the server should have the socket service configure on that. Then only it is possible on that, right? As I told you that this WebSocket is purely the JavaScript API, aka HTML5 API, and then that has actually been implemented by all the major browsers. Now, this is also available nowadays with the native clients like Android, iOS, the mobile clients. Okay, they make a use of that. So now the thing is that as we are having these things supported by JavaScript, and now if we are taking this application deployed on Azure, then why not this to be available on Azure? It's a thought process. And Azure SignalR Service is actually doing the same thing for us, right? It's doing the same thing for us over here. So now, what is this Azure SignalR? So technically, this is the real-time functionality. This is used to allow the service to push the content that is updated to the client, right? So whatever the contents are there on the server, those content updates will be pushed to the client, right? This could be our front-end JavaScript single-page application, which we develop with any library or framework, right? Maybe Angular, maybe Vue, maybe React, or whatever it is, and the mobile application. Now, since this is a push, right, we do not need the explicit request reply pattern of HTTP. So ultimately, HTTP is now being given power to use this push notification or the polling techniques, push notification from the server and polling by the capabilities of HTTP. So this is available over there. So Azure SignalR manage this on a cloud for us. So it is going to have all the necessary infrastructure arrangement. We'll talk about that when we are going to do this practically. So it has all those necessary infrastructure arrangement. With the help of this, this is enabled. So naturally, the client application must be aware about the SignalR service, right? They must have a subscription on the SignalR service. So what Azure SignalR does is that Azure SignalR provides the key called as an authentication key, and this authentication key will be used to manage the necessary content negotiation so that the connection will be established. And then further, it's going to provide the hub. Now this hub, what is hub? Say general hub. What is the dictionary meaning of hub? It's a centralized processing feature which is actually going to manage incoming as well as outgoing connectivity information. I'll repeat. It's a centralized processing arrangement which will be responsible to manage all incoming and outgoing communication messages. So this provides a hub, right, which will actually take care of managing the push and push notification across various customers. So Azure SignalR is out of the box designed for this, right? It's out of the box designed for this. So now, like, there are some use cases or some type of scenarios which are anyways discussed over here by Azure SignalR Service. So the major important thing over here is that it actually provides us the high frequency data updates. We need this high frequency data updates, which are the domain where we need it. One of the major important thing over here is the voting, right? Multiple people keeps on voting, online voting, right? Multiple end user, I must say. And then immediately the counter has to be increased. Then gaming, multiple players, they can take a participation into the gaming, right? So like one user, he make a move in a chase. All the other, another user, not all the other user, another user will be immediately get intimated with that particular movement, and so that he can take his, he can start initiating his own movement. Or I'll give another realistic example. In a typical e-commerce application, what happens is that buyer, he puts the requirement for the material, he just put the order. The sender user should be notified with that particular order, and then immediately the sender or seller, I must say, or a supplier should take the immediate action on that. So there could be multiple users who are putting orders, right? And then the one or more suppliers should be immediately informed or intimated about that. Such type of high frequency data updates in a modern application. That's one of the biggest advantage that we are going to have. Then another one is the real-time communication that is needed into the share market, financial market, about ups and downs, right? What is the current price of the share? Okay, that information. Then as of today, like we are also making a use of lots of sensors for weather forecasting, sensor for pollution check, right? Sensor for water level in a dam, okay, or like that. Okay, sensor for Richter scale sensor, correct or not? And we want to have the dashboard monitoring of all such things. Naturally, this needs a real-time data communication. We really don't expect that the Richter scale will generate the data, then that will store it into the database, and then we'll write an application and fetch the data from the database. No, it's a foolish approach. The moment there is a change into the Richter scale, immediately your desktop or the dashboard should be push with the notification with that. We have this type of requirement. Okay, creation of the notification-based dashboard application. Then very frequently talked example over here is that going for chat, right? Chat application, like creating a chat room, creating a chat bot, okay, live customer support. All these things makes a use of the real-time communication. And this is like very frequently used as of today by most of us, right? We use online shopping or real-time shopping assistant to know about the product, right? You want to purchase a laptop, you visit the site of the official website of the laptop manufacturer. On the home page, you get the assistant, and you just put your requirement, and then your customer service starts over there, called as a real-time shopping assistant. Okay, like that, chatting. Real-time location maps, I have already taken that particular example over there, that using Swiggy or Uber or all such type of cab services. Those who immediately provide the status tracking systems, right? Some application. And now you are going to do this on cloud. Now, see, the thing over here is that why we are talking about Azure SignalR over here. In one of the training program recently which I had, my student has asked me the question. He said that, Mahesh, is it really necessary for me to go for an Azure SignalR for this? Can I not do this on premises? I said, yes, you can. But think of the scalability. Advantage of going for an Azure is the scalability. Correct or not? So you are having the worldwide availability of your application and the scalability of your application, where for the same high frequency data updates or dashboard or chatting or real-time location map, you're going to get benefited with that. That's the advantage. So why we are taking, or why we are moving from the on-premises SignalR to the Azure SignalR is for this type of advantages over there. And then there are so many things, right? We have advertising, right? Collaborative applications, right? Collaborative applications over there. Now what that we do this into the meetings, okay, broadcasting and science and so forth. We do have lot many advantages that we are going to get with the help of this Azure SignalR services, right? So from on-premises, we are going to go to the cloud, right? And enjoying the real-time communication over there, right? Uh, Now, the question over here is that, like, okay, although we do have these many advantages or the benefits, right, which we are gonna get over there, or which are provided to us by Azure SignalR services, then going on the practical implementation, what type of benefits it is gonna offer us? A typical developer question, I must say, or even an architect, right? Amongst you, those who are architect over here, right, from an attendees, when you want to provide such type of real-time communication solutions to your customers, right? Though you know the technology, you have to really find out that how it will be integrated, right, with your existing application. How much less efforts it is going to take to migrate your on-premises real-time app to an Azure real-time app, or existing application will be provided with the support of the real-time application. How you are going to do that? Uh, like 1 year back, almost, I must say that was in the beginning of the first quarter of 2019. I have written one solution, chatting solution for customer support with my customer over here in Pune, and now we are sorry, we are into the process of migrating it into the Azure SignalR service. So the benefits with respect to the technology and benefits for the developers as well as for the products, how it is going to prove itself. So the first thing is that the advantage of going for this Azure SignalR over here is that it is going to provide the abstraction layer over the standard protocol, that is the WebSocket. It is giving the complete abstraction. So it is not really necessary for us to create a socket object and then configure a port for that socket object and then manage the subscription explicitly. Not necessary. The Azure SignalR directly offers us a package. We use the package. We do have the classes, right, and the methods for that, with the help of which, right, it is possible for us to directly go for the socket subscription model. What this is going to do is that this is going to provide us the auto detection of the transport initialization. So this is going to take care of the negotiation. Right now, what is negotiation? Negotiation is it's basically a process where the subscription initialization has taken place or will be taken place. So socket, it will check whether the service is available to you or not, and whether your application is able to get connected with that particular service or not. Which service I'm talking about? Azure SignalR service. Whether it is able to talk to that so that the further messaging can be made possible. So Azure SignalR is going to provide the abstraction over all the WebSocket standard communications, right? Just to make our programming easier. Now, programming, how we are going to do the programming? So, like, but natural, most of the applications on Microsoft Cloud, typically, if you are coming from the Microsoft stack for a web application development, we use ASP.NET Core, right? It's not by force, it's by choice. But then we know that ASP.NET Core is a cloud-ready technology. It's a unified programming model, right? One common story for web pages, or I should say web forms, MVC, as well as for API. It's a common story for all. So that becomes a natural choice for building the cloud-enabled application. Let me tell you, it becomes a natural choice for the cloud-enabled applications. Now the question is that is it supported for to that? Yes. So SignalR service actually provides a native programming experience with ASP.NET Core and of course an ASP.NET platforms or ASP.NET technology, ASP.NET, ASP.NET MVC, right? Uh, so it is easily possible for us to develop a new application which is making a use of Azure SignalR service in it, or we can actually migrate our existing on-premises SignalR service to an Azure SignalR service. It is easily possible for us to migrate without any, or I should say, without too much of the coding changes. Of course, some minimal changes are needed over there. That's very true. But the cost of these changes, now here the cost is in the form of time, that is comparatively lesser here. All right. So minimal efforts. Okay, and ASP.NET Core ecosystem with ASP.NET Core 3.0 onwards, we have Blazor, right? Blazor is a new vertical for building the rich UI UX apps, right, over ASP.NET Core. So we are having the Blazor server side and Blazor WebAssembly. Blazor server side purely works on a server, on the hosting, and WebAssembly, it works on browser, right? So the thing over here is that the server side Blazor also do have the support for ASP.NET Core, right? For the Azure SignalR services. It's there with us. Then the next thing for developers over there is about the client side support, right? So it comes up with the wide range of the web and mobile browsers, as well as on a desktop application, mobile native application, server side process, IoTs and game consoles. Right? So we do have broad client support over here for the Azure SignalR services. So how we are gonna implement this? So definitely we are gonna need the corresponding SDK, right? So if it is an ASP.NET Core application, so we are gonna have ASP.NET Core or ASP.NET C# SDK, right, for SignalR services, and with also the JavaScript, right, is there with us. Now, how this has been provided? So we can have the, of course, the C# SDK for ASP.NET Core. This is going to get executed on the server side, on the hosting side precisely. And if it is browser, we are going to require ASP.NET SignalR JavaScript package. It's a JavaScript client SDK. I'll repeat, ASP.NET SignalR JavaScript SDK. It's a package which is going to provide us the native objects, with the help of which it will be possible for us to subscribe to the Azure SignalR service. The client will get authenticated against that and then can enjoy the real-time communication. So the thing over here is that on programming front also, this is really very easy. This is also available with Java for the Android native apps, right? And this also supports the REST API, right, through the serverless integration, which use Azure functions and event grids. Now, what is this? I'm going to show one demonstration on this also, right? But then I'm overwhelmed to or overexcited to tell you about this. REST API with Azure functions. Very important concept. You know that Azure functions, they are the serverless. Right. So if you have worked with the Azure function, it is not necessary for me to explain about the in-depth details of that. If not, like here, you can go to the docs.microsoft.com and learn about Azure functions. Or I have already written one article on DNC magazine. You can download it and you can read about it. So basically, Azure functions, they works on serverless and trigger-based execution model. So when there is an HTTP request, it will get executed. When there is a entry into the Cosmos DB, it will get executed. When there is an entry that has been made, you upload the file into the blob storage, it will get executed, and so on and so forth. Pure serverless approach. So what we can do is that we can have the Azure function, the typical serverless approach, get integrated with SignalR. So serverless real-time communication, that's what that we can make possible. So we are having REST API and SignalR coordinating with each other. I'll repeat, the serverless REST API and SignalR service, Azure SignalR service coordinating with each other to provide the real-time communication. So you can think of architecting your application like this. Typically e-commerce type of application, they need this, right? So advantage over here is that we do have a broad support from the client, right? For the client, not from the client, for the client side technologies. Based upon your configuration of your Azure SignalR service, right, we get benefited from the large scale client connections. Large scale, this goes into the millions of clients collection. So what happens over here is that, like the SignalR service, this is configured to allow multiple instances so that it can work together to scale to millions of clients collection. It is written for that. Okay. Not only in a specific region on Microsoft Azure, this can also go across multiple global region support, right? With high availability as well as for like why we go for multiple region for typical disaster recovery, right? So if one is down, unfortunately, if one region goes down, it will be available from another region. We can make that thing possible, right? So millions of concurrent client connections are allowed by the Azure SignalR services. I must say this is the real reason that why should you think of going for an Azure SignalR services, right? Okay, that's important thing. Like imagine over here, this could be a kind of a superficial example over there, but then like air traffic movement across the globe at any given time, you can see those traffic status. Okay, right now this is the superficial example. I haven't practically worked on that, but I'm visualizing it, right? So like there are several aircrafts which are actually moving across the globe, and then you are tracking the movement of all through your one application. Understood that? So such type of things. All right, this is kind of a visualization that I'm doing, but I think this should be possible. Okay, benefits for large concurrent collections, right? The worldwide banking fund transfer, and notification. So you are in India, right? You are placing an order for a specific item using a website, but the supplier is there in US. The moment you do the entire transaction, immediately the supplier will get a notification and he will start the order processing, like that e-commerce kind of application. These are practical, right? Like think of lots of e-commerce application, right? They're working on a real-time thing. So if you want to build such type of application, Azure SignalR service could be the better, or I should say the great solution for you. Now, the thing over here is that the question asked like this, that, okay, so now how is it gonna be different from my self-host SignalR application? Now, self-host in the thing that these are the on-premises where you are actually gonna create a hub, okay, right, in your application itself. So though the application is deployed on Azure, the application is actually natively hosting your SignalR service. I'll repeat, the application is natively hosting your SignalR, right, through the package. So In your application, you are creating a hub, right? I already given you the notification, or sorry, the definition or explanation of the hub. And now what happens is that your web application, which is actually deployed as an Azure app service, so though it is executing on the cloud, the SignalR service is native to your application. Means SignalR is not directly making the use of the Azure. That's the difference, called as a self-host SignalR app. So that means your browser client is actually going to make the request to the web application. Then the web application is going to talk to the SignalR, and then it's going to perform the necessary real-time communication over there. So what happens is that, like, the self-hosted SignalR works like that. So instead of this, now what we are going to do is that we are making our web application separately. We are going to have our SignalR instances through the Azure SignalR service, making it separately. So now your client application, which could be browser app, it could be it's a JavaScript SDK browser application like Angular, React, or Vue, whatever it is. What it is going to do is that it is been having the direct connectivity through the SignalR, and then what's going to happen is that multiple such browser clients, right, they can now send the concurrent connection request to the SignalR service, and then SignalR service will be able to manage all this real-time communication. So that's the difference here. So see here, self-hosted SignalR app is also deployed on Azure with help of Azure App Services, but actual communication is mainly handled by the web app, and then SignalR Hub will come into the picture. Exactly different from that, it's an Azure SignalR service is now going to act as a first-class member to manage the real-time communication. So that is the difference. So think of doing such type of migration, and let me tell you, this migration is not at all difficult. You have to just you're just going to make a use of the Azure SignalR package, and you're going to add one line in your existing application. This is what that you are going to do. Okay, so the thing is that the Azure SignalR service is going to act as an independent service, which will be responsible to manage all the real-time communications, right, required for your application, right? Sorry. Okay, so that's the thing here. So now here some questions, right? Some questions related to that. Okay, over here. What are the internals of it, right? How this is gonna work internally? Okay, Azure SignalR, what are the internal processes? How this is gonna work on cloud? So what's gonna happen is that, okay, so this is technically purely built upon the ASP.NET Core SignalR framework. Ultimately, the one which was called as a self-host SignalR before some time, I already told you. Okay, and it makes a use of the same protocols, right? Of course, the socket, I already told you about that, it provides a kind of a layer of abstraction, right, over the existing WebSocket, right? That's what I already told you. But now moving further on this, what is going to happen? So here we do have the Azure SignalR service, correct? And now we are going to have the application server, app server, which is hosting our app, right? Hosting our app. Let's say www.myshoppingsite.com. Right, that myshoppingsite.com is hosted here. Now that myshopping.com is having two different roles. One is the customer role. Now what customer role is going to do? The customer role will be responsible to see the product from the product catalog and then put the order, right? This is one role. Now there is another role called as a supplier role. And what that supplier role is going to do, the supplier role will immediately get informed about the required order or received order, right? It will immediately be informed with that. So this application server, app server, is going to host that myeshopping.com website. Now, what we are going to have is that we are going to have the Azure SignalR service created. This SignalR service by default is going to provide us a hub. And what this hub is going to do is that this hub is going to manage the message receiving and message broadcasting. Means it is going to receive the message and then it is going to broadcast that message. The two minimum operations. Now, the thing over here is that the client who is supposed to use that myeshopping.com, right? It's not really aware that whether there is the real-time communication is there or not. A client is not really aware about that. So what happens is that client makes a request. Client makes a request. Now the thing over here is that whatever the request that has been made by the client, right, that client has to basically process that request over what? It has to process that particular request over the server connection, right? So now the thing is that the server is going to have the subscription with Azure SignalR Service. So like this Azure SignalR Service is going to have the key, and then that key is been configured to this application server, app server, which is hosting our application. Over that key, what is going to happen is that the app server is going to use the endpoint negotiation, which is actually going to make sure that whether the connection is connection to the Azure SignalR service is happening successfully or not. If it is actually happening successfully, then what it is going to do is that it is going to make the further execution, means further processing possible. So the step number one is that the negotiate endpoint is exports by the Azure SignalR Service SDK to each hub. That's the step number one. Means my app server is configured with Azure SignalR SDK, having an integration with Azure SignalR Service over the key, over which the negotiate means connection initialization request endpoint will be exports, so that what's going to happen is that there will be the persist connection that will be established between the client and the SignalR service, Azure SignalR service. Now here, what is that client? So what happened is that myshopping.com, this is a single page application. What this single page application is doing, it is actually loading some JavaScript scripts into the browser. And this JavaScript script may be Angular, maybe React, maybe Vue, or might be a raw JavaScript, whatever. Those JavaScript scripts are further managing the communication over HTTP. So what happens is that once the negotiation is actually been successful over here, what will happen? The persist connection that will be established between the SignalR service and the client. So it says that the endpoint will respond to the client's negotiation request and redirect client to the SignalR service. That means now app server says, yes, I have authenticated against the key which has been given to me or configured to the server from the Azure SignalR service. Over that key, the authentication has taken place. Authentication means what? It's actually giving the guarantee that yes, this app server is now having an access to the SignalR service, over which the negotiation endpoint is exposed, the successful connection has taken place. So once that has been done, now eventually the client will be connected to the SignalR service. Now this is what the persist communication is gonna take place. or persist connection is gonna establish, over which the real-time communication is gonna take place. So the thing over here is that with the Azure SignalR service, the real-time communication methodology with a hub connection, we are taking out from my application server to the different Azure SignalR service instance. And because of that only, now it is possible for us to go for the large scale concurrent connection. This is what is happening. This is the advantage. So what happens is that we are going to have the client. So here it says that for ASP.NET SignalR, right, Azure SignalR Service SDK opens 5 WebSocket connection per hub to the SignalR service. Means what is going to happen over here is that this Azure SignalR service is going to have the 5 concurrent WebSocket connection for the sake of the scalability, so that multiple client connections will be allowed over there. So this client is my this client is a guy who is responsible or who is interested to browse through the product and placing the order. Now that guy has already opened the socket, means the connection is successfully established. The moment another client, right here, the supplier client, the moment he logs in, what's going to happen is that he will get negotiated immediately. He will be able to get the same socket connection which is open by the SignalR service, and then whatever the data over the persist connection that has been sent by the client, immediately that data will be notified to the other client. This is what is going to happen, right? This is what is going to happen. So now managing the data communication will not be the responsibility of the app server. Instead, it will be taken care by my Azure SignalR service, and that too over the notification. So please understand the advantage what we are going to get here. Right? Please understand those advantages, right? So you will feel like a request reply pattern, right? But ultimately over HTTP, this will be managed over the WebSocket or by putting the abstraction layer of abstraction over the WebSocket with the help of the Azure SignalR service. Understood it? So this is how internally it is gonna work. So what has been done over here is that we have been provided with the package. You have to configure the package with our application. We have to create the Azure SignalR service with a strategy, whether we want default hub or we want to go serverless with Azure function. We have to define that strategy. Once that particular strategy is been defined, now what happens next is that we can directly start making a use of this. This is the advantage what we are actually going to get with the help of the SignalR services. So now let's go with that, or let's try to work with it. So here I'm going to show you 2 different demonstration. Of course, like I made the code ready over here with it. So I'm going to show 2 different things. Making a use of Azure SignalR service by defining an explicit hub. And then the second thing is that making a use of the Azure SignalR services with the help of the serverless. Right. So, but before that, I'd like to show you the SignalR service creation over here. So this is what that I want to do. Right. So let me open the portal here. All right. This is my Azure portal. Sorry. And here I'll go to the create resource. I'll have here, right, SignalR service. Right. So now some good practices which we are supposed to follow while working with the Azure portal. I know this could be, this might not be directly relevant for this meetup or for this session, but I always keep telling to my attendees, to my students, right, that better you should read the explanation whenever you are going to create any resource. This is very important, right? So what it says that it's Azure SignalR service is a Azure managed PaaS service, platform as a service. So you know three concepts, right? You might be aware, right? Platform as a service, software as a service, and infrastructure as a service. So from that, SignalR Service is a PaaS service to simplify the development, deployment, and management of real-time web application using SignalR with Azure support SLA. Right. So we are having the service level agreement for scaling, for performance, as well as for the security. Right. This provides API, SDK, the command line interface, as well as the UI. Right. So that we can use this for our application development. Okay, and then there are some features. About these features I have already explained you, right? Only thing is the point which I haven't talked about is the authentication model. So if you are using the serverless features, or typically for the security, for accessing the Azure SignalR service, better the client should be authenticated. In this session, I'm not talking about that, but the thing is that the client-side authentication is possible with the help of token-based auth, right? Okay, that's the thing. So I'm just gonna create it over here. Selecting the subscription, selecting the user resource group, right over here. So. So I'm gonna have the resource group over there. So I'm selecting that. Right, this is my resource group. Right here, SignalR. I have already having that resource group over there. So here I'm gonna make it as, let's say, SignalR service, right? 001. Some name, right? Make it is that in lowercase. This is more recommended. So we are going to have the SignalR service 001.service.signalr.net. Okay, that's the thing here. Then region here. So the region here. So I'm going to select the West US here. This is what I'm going to select. The pricing here. So we do have the free tier. This is if you are using it for a development or testing thing, then like for test means you just want to evaluate the feature or the advantageous feature set of Azure SignalR Service, then you can go for this free. Otherwise, if you are thinking to go for the production, better you make a use of the standard. Now here, based upon your requirement, you can actually go for the price details over there. So we do have the free as well as the standard. So we are going to have the single unit, means ultimately it's one single instance supporting up to 20 concurrent collection. And then this is going to have 20,000 messages per day per unit, right? 20,000 messages per day per unit, means per instance. Of course, going to provide secure socket layer SSL with an HTTPS, and then of course it's not a part of your service level agreement. So naturally, so that's the reason here we should avoid using these things in a production. Whereas the standard here we are having up to 100 instance units. We are going to have 1,000 connections per unit. Imagine how much scalability that we are going to get here. 1,000 into 100, right? Calculate that. 1 million of message per day per unit, right? Of course, SSL, and then we are having the 99.9% of the uptime here. This is under the SLA, and of course, naturally, this is costly. So now, what are the suggestions over here? So when you are going to define an architecture of your application, right? Find out the real-time communication requirements with the full load for your application. right? The amount of the data that will be used in the communication, please calculate that. You can use any tools about the messaging size calculations and all, like there are some free tools available. Okay, so you find out your need and according to that plan for it. That's important. Okay, so we do have free, we do have a standard. So right now I'm gonna select the free over here. I'm selecting that. Right, so the unit count over here, so it's 1. If I change this over here, so this is what I'm gonna go get it, right? So I'm selecting free. Now the service mode, very important. So we do have the default, serverless and classic. Again, moving over there. So the thing is that default is where you are supposed to create a hub, right? And then like, so you are supposed to configure everything, right? You are supposed to create a hub. You are supposed to create negotiation, message receiving, message broadcasting. Everything you have to create it explicitly, right? And then manage it. Okay, you can do that. So of course, what you have to do is that you are supposed to have that hub created in your ASP.NET Core application. So in your ASP.NET Core application, you have to add the package of Microsoft extension.signalR, right? So I'll tell you that package. You have to install that package. That SignalR package provides the hub class. So you have to create your class, which is derived from the hub class, and then you will be able to make a use of this, right? Serverless, this serverless is actually gonna deploy it as a function, right? And then what you can do is that for that function, okay, you can now that is gonna be an Azure function. So now you can write a function trigger for that. Okay, so HTTP trigger integrated with a SignalR, Cosmos trigger integrated with a SignalR. Means you can do that. Okay, I will suggest over here is to evaluate your requirement. Okay, and then based upon that you define your service mode, right? You can actually go for that. Okay, service modes. So what I suggest you that please take this decision carefully over there, right? Then the third one, we do have a classic mode, right? So this is a mixed mode of a default and a serverless, right? So the thing over here is that like this particular mode, we have to of course have the hub server that is being used by the client. The client is gonna establish connection to your hub. Okay, and then over which the messages will be received, and those messages will be further processed. So at given time, you can keep on switching between default and serverless, right? So when there is a HTTP, when there is an HTTP communication which is going to happen, it is going to enter into the serverless mode. Otherwise, it is going to work with the default mode. So the classic, that is the third option that we can use it. But this classic mode comes up with some type of limitation over here. So right now, this is not gonna support the upstream feature, right? Upstream feature in the sense that like dealing with the streaming thing. It's not right now available over here. It doesn't support. But then you can decide that like which one you want to go for. So right now I'm gonna select the default one here, right? Going to go for the networking. I'm going to make sure that the public endpoint over here is been configured, right? And then I say review and create. So this will be validated, right? And then clicking on create, right? So this is what is gonna happen. So my SignalR service will be created. It will take its own time. So now here there is some discussion which is also been initiated on this, that like how should we choose the service mode cautiously, or what is the appropriate way of choosing the service mode. So the thing over here is that if you are already familiar with the SignalR library, you know how it works. And if you want to move from the self-hosted SignalR to the Azure SignalR service, then better you should actually go for the default mode, right? You are migrating your self-hosted SignalR service to the Azure SignalR service, then you better go for the default mode, right? This is not going to give us any code changes. Means too much of the code changes will not be there. Same programming model, what you were using it for the self-hosted SignalR service will be used for the Azure SignalR. And the thing over here is that like the typical serverless mode, when you are going to go for, so you are creating the new application, and the thing over here is that you really do not want to create your own hub server for any connection management, connection negotiation. You want to make sure that like your client will directly send a request for establishing the connection to the hub, and then the hub should take care of that connection establishment, right? Kind of the negotiation, and then it will take care of accepting the messages and broadcasting the messages, right? So when you want this to happen for your newly defined application, then it is advisable for you to go for the server mode for the new application, right? As I already told you that the serverless mode works with Azure functions, right? So naturally, it is going to use all the capabilities and features of the Azure functions, right? You don't need to configure the separate server for that. Okay, and the thing over here is that with Azure function, you know that Azure function with HTTP triggering, right? You can still work with a duplex pattern, right? Request reply pattern, typically like REST API. But with some change into the programming model, with this serverless mode of the Azure SignalR service, you can still go for the typical pushback notification, right? So default mode for existing app to migrate from self-host SignalR to the Azure SignalR, then use default. For the new application with a serverless approach, make a use of the serverless. And if you want to go for the mixed mode, right, with the same SignalR communication, like where you need to go for traditional SignalR hub, and also you want to go for the typical request reply pattern with a serverless, then you can go for the classic. So this is what that we do have. So I'm going to go to the SignalR service here, right? And the keys, correct here. So this is that connection string with the help of which our client will be able to connect, right? The client means our hosting application will be able to connect to the SignalR service, as I told you in this diagram. Okay, the app server to the Azure SignalR services. Okay, so it's going to happen with that particular endpoint over there. Of course, yes, that since I have gone for the free tier over there, there is no scaling available. But the moment I change it, right, the moment I change it, right, it will allow me to go for the scaling changes, right, scale enhancements over there, right. Then I can also keep on changing this from one service mode to another service mode after the creation of the Azure SignalR service as per the requirement. CORS, better it is always advisable for you to go for this CORS settings. Typically, this plays very important role when you are gonna use this Azure SignalR in a serverless mode. It is really very important for you to actually set this CORS settings. You can use star, or then you can also make a use of the specific origin. That is possible, right? Okay, that's the case. Now this is what I have created it for the default. I'll again open the another tab for my portal, right? And then again I'll go for create a resource. I'll say here SignalR service, right? Create. Okay, selecting this here, right? I'll have SignalR service. Okay, 002, right? And again, I'll make this as West US standard. I'll make this as a serverless here, public endpoint create. So this is going to have the function integration with the Azure function. So I'm also going to create that. Okay. So let this be created. All right. I'm going to have one more instance of this here. Right, I'm opening these instances so that I can show you that how these are going to created, and then with my existing applications also. So I already have my Azure SignalR services which are created here. Right, SignalR services over here. I already have this as a serverless, and this I already have it with the SignalR MSIT. This is what I am already having it. Okay, well, so this is still taking time to create it. So the process, like creation of the default Azure SignalR service and then serverless. Okay, now I'd like to take you back to the application, right? So here I am showing two different applications. One application is actually simply gonna make a use of the hub, a simple hub, right, for the chatting. This is my one application, and the second application will be making a use of uh, Azure SignalR service with a serverless integration. So one application is just my simple chatting application. This is created with ASP.NET Core, right? Okay, created with ASP.NET Core, right? And then I'll take you to the NuGet package over here, and here I'm going to have Microsoft.Azure.SignalR. Okay, Microsoft.Azure.SignalR. This is the package that I'm using, right? And then what this uses is internally again is I already talked about that internal, that how it abstract the WebSocket and then open those 5 connections. That's one thing. But now as far as the coding is concerned, so we are going to have here Microsoft.ASP.HTTP.connections.client here, right? This is going to manage the direct connections from the client application. Then SignalR protocol, the one which is actually having an abstraction over the WebSocket and then for identity. That's what it is. Now, this application is my simple classic chatting application. The similar application is also available on docs.microsoft.com. Right, I have taken the same app over here. But the other application which I'm going to show you for the serverless, that is different, created by me completely. So now here, the first thing first, I'll take you to the startup here. And the thing over here is that the important thing. So if you, this is ASP.NET Core application. So if you are using the self-host SignalR app, then you simply use services.add_SignalR. That's it. You simply use this. Correct. But if you are using now, when you are going to migrate it to the Azure SignalR, then you have to add this .add Azure SignalR. This is what that you have to do, right? But now the thing over here is that the connection string, the key from that SignalR service must be Azure SignalR service must be configured to your application. So for that, what we have to do is that we have to actually make a use of the user secrets, which will take care of reading the Azure SignalR connection string and getting it configured with the app. So I'd like to take you to the project CSPROJ file over here. So what I'm going to do is that over here, sorry. So the thing over here is that, okay, I'm going to show you to the edit project file over here. And this is what I have just added the SignalR secret over there. Right. So here I'd say that user secret ID, Azure SignalR, right over here. This is the name that I have given. Then I'm going to take you to the app settings.json over there. Right. There is nothing, but we can actually set the Azure SignalR corrections thing over here also, which we'll do it eventually in another example. Now, what you have to do is that to configure the connection string, the key, right, of your Azure SignalR to your current application, what you have to do is that from the command line, from the command prompt, you have to run this command, .NET user-secret set Azure :SignalR connection string, and then you have to take that connection string, which I have told you over here. So if I take you to this, the keys and then the connection string, this is what that you have to use it, okay, and run this command. So what is going to happen is that this user secrets, this is the you know that the user secrets, this is a .NET Core command. This is gonna configure your project, right, with respect to the corresponding settings, right? So the build of the project will actually digest these settings and then execute it. So in a build, in a environment build of your .NET Core, your ASP.NET Core application, this will be configured and then you will be able to use that. So services.add SignalR, this is self-host SignalR, and this is that .add Azure SignalR for Azure SignalR. Right. Now, what I want to do is that I want to basically go for the typical chatting application. It's a simple example which I'm taking. So I'm going to define a hub. I told you that it's a central process, the object which will monitor all incoming messages, and then it will take care of broadcasting all those messages to the other concurrent collections. So we have been provided with this map hub extension method. If I right click on the map hub and then if I take you to the definition of it over there, right? Okay, so this is actually want to take some time over here. I just go to this and then right over here. Okay. Okay. So this map hub, what this is actually going to do is that this is going to integrate the class which is derived from hub class, over which all the negotiation and the communication is going to take place. So this is going to provide us a URL so that we can connect to the WebSocket, which has been managed by my Azure SignalR service. So where is my chat over here? So hub is a folder. In that I do have a chat.js, right? And now here, this chat class derived from a hub class, okay? And then what I'm having is that, so I have a broadcast messages and echo. Now the thing is that there is no negotiation that I kept here. So the thing over here is that my endpoint.map-hub, this is responsible to take care of the negotiation so that the persist connection will be established from my client application to my Azure SignalR service, over which the messaging is gonna take place or it will be handled. So here I says that like whatever the message, right, that will be received over here over this broadcast message. Okay, that particular message will be used. It will be processed across all the concurrent clients. Now, where are those clients? So this is my hub, but somebody has to connect to that hub. So I'm having the index.html here, right? This is my index.html, and what this is actually going to do is that this is making a use of the ASP.NET SignalR JavaScript package, right? Here, this is signalr.min.js. I'm just gonna open this. This is a JavaScript here, right? So this is the JavaScript over here. So this is the JavaScript SDK, and this JavaScript SDK will be basically used for managing the SignalR communication from the client to the Azure SignalR service. So here I'm making the use of that over there. So now the thing over here is that I have the HTML UI over there. So the thing is that there is a text area element available. Then there are two buttons which are available, right? So the one which is echo and another button to send a message. That's what it's there to manage the janky panky UI. I'm also making a use of this bootstrap over there, right? So similar example that you can actually get it from docs.microsoft.com. Okay. Moving further on this, that I'll go over here and I'm gonna show you the implementation, right, which is actually gonna make a use of the JavaScript SDK. So here, what I'm gonna do is that here I say that create message entry, right? I'm gonna read the message which has been entered into the text area, having the ID as a message over there, correct? And now what I'm gonna do over here is that, right, I'm gonna subscribe, right, to the connection object which has been passed to this method bind connection message, right? This connection object will be created with the help of SignalR hub connection over there. So which is there somewhere in at the bottom, right? The SignalR connection. So here I'm having SignalR.hub connection builder with URL. So what this is going to do is that this is actually going to make sure that the negotiation is being done, right, with the endpoint having the address as /chat. Okay. And then what it is going to do is that, right, this is going to return the connection object, and then it's going to check, it is going to start the messaging on that particular endpoint over here. So the major important part over here is that making a use of SignalR.hub connection builder. So SignalR, this is the object that we are going to get it from the ASP.NET Core SignalR JavaScript SDK, right? A hub connection builder is the one which is responsible to build the connection with the hub. So for that, it makes a use of the with URL method, and this with URL method, right, what it does is that this uses the URL which has been exposed by my server over here, chat, over which the connection is going to take place. Once the connection is being takes place, what's going to happen is that over here, the get connected method. Prior to that, we do have here is that bind connection to the message. This method has been called on a click event. So the whatever the message that's actually been entered right over here into that message text box, that will be read. And then what it is going to do is that, right, the connection object dot on broadcast message. So this is my messaging event, which has been handled by whom? This has been handled by my hub over here. So if I go to the chat.cs over here, we already have the broadcast message, right? This is already there. Okay, right? So, well, so I'll take the questions afterwards over there. So now the thing is that the message will be broadcasted, which is being sent over there. And then that message will be taken to the hub. And then what hub is going to do is that hub is going to make the that message available to all other concurrent clients. That's what the thing is. So now let me run this here. Right. So this will be executed. Right. So I'm just going to enter my name here. I just say, right. Okay. Right. So this is it. So connection has been established successfully. Okay. So I'm just going to click on OK here. And now what I want to do is that I want to take you to the developer tools over here. And if you see that here, okay, so here, right. Do you see that here it says that WSS colon / test SignalR MSIT.service.signalr.net, right? So this is connecting to whom? This is connecting to my Azure SignalR service, right? It is connecting to that. Okay, that is what it is actually doing. So here, if I take you to the SignalR over here, I have this is my test SignalR MSIT, and over here, of course, this is here. This is it, right? Of which key that I have used over there. Well, so it's been connected over there. I'll just copy this from here. Right, I'll start the another instance of my browser over there. I'll paste it. Right, I'll have some another name. Right, so right, the connection is successful over there. So see here, another active client has got the notification. So I'll go to this here. Right, this is it. Now again, I'll go to the JavaScript console over there. And if you see that, so this is also connecting to that same WSS colon / test here. And then it is taking that entire token key, which is actually been configured to the project, and over which I'm going to have the messaging that is going to take place over here. So I say send, right? Okay, right here. So if I go to this, right, we are going to having that, right? I'll say here, maybe hi, Ajay, right? So that's the thing. And then if I go to this over here, right? So this is it. I have put some alert boxes over there. Anyways, so basically the thing is that with the help of the JavaScript SDK, right? With the help of the JavaScript SDK and the object which is provided by that over here, what is that? By SignalR.hub connection builder, with the help of that, we are able to connect. Now, this is one thing over here where I'm going to make a use of the default hub, right? And then that default hub is taking care of that. Okay, now this is one thing. But now what if that I want to go for some other type of application over here? I'll show this application and then I'll go to the question answers. So if you see that here, I do have the function, right? This is my function over there. This is my serverless application. This is my Azure function. It has the function name negotiate. What this is going to do is that this is actually accepting the post request over here with an HTTP trigger. So when the client wants to establish the connection, right? Okay, the client's request will be accepted, okay, over the key, of course, and then if the key is valid, the negotiation is going to take place to establish the persist connection. Now what I have is that I have here a method called as a post order, right? This post order, right, this is making a use of the same hub, the transaction that is hub, which is used by the negotiation with the SignalR connection info. This is gonna create the hub with the transaction, the one which we have created with the help of class in earlier example. Now that's what that we are having over here with the Azure function. Now what happens is that this post order is gonna accept the order with the order ID and all that. And then what this is gonna do is that this is gonna create the order by calling the method called as create order, and then I'm connecting to the database server over there. And then this is my simple code, which the order will be stored into the database and in the table orders. All right. So I'll take you back over here. Well, I'm just gonna open here. This is it. Then I'll go to home, right? And then I'll have visit the query editor. I'm just going to connect to the database over here, right? And yes, this is my orders table, right? I'll say select star from orders here. So I'm having some 3, 4, 5 orders that I do have. So now what I'm going to do is that, like when the request is made, right, and the connection is going to take place, the post order is actually going to post the request to the database. Now here, this is my function. I'm just going to click on this and have a look over here is that I'm configuring the Azure SignalR connection string over here with this endpoint. Okay. This is what has been configured over there. Okay. I'm having the CORS configuration that has been done over here with the local port as 7071. And then I'm giving my clients who are actually going to make a call that is on 8090 and 8091, right? So what happens is that to support that CORS policy, for that, I'm having the startup. Now this is the function startup, because this Azure function, I'm going to make it as a API over there. Okay, so the thing is that there I'm configuring the CORS policy. Now how we are going to get this function startup class? So for that, we have to basically install that Microsoft.extension.dependency injection, Microsoft.extension.dependency injection abstraction. This package will give us the function startup class, right, where we use it just like an ASP.NET Core startup. And then the SignalR service, Microsoft.azure.webjar.extension.signalR service, which is actually going to provide the integration, right, between my Azure SignalR service and my Azure function. So this is it. Then this is my sender application. This is my ASP.NET Core app, which is having an order controller, right? And then the view here, right, orders. This is my create.cshtml over here. And in this create.cshtml, okay, right, what I'm going to do is that just 5 minutes I'm going to take here. That I'm going to have the order ID and all that. Again, I'm going to make a use of the now here I'll just go for the localhost thing here, right? Saving it. Again, I'm making a use of that SignalR over there, right? Then again, I'm going to connect right to the base URL/API. So my base URL is my function over here, localhost 7071, right? I'm establishing the connection, then connecting to the method new order over there. This is my new order type here. That is my SignalR message. Okay, I'm connecting to that. Then my save button is going to read the order information and it is going to post that order, right? Over here, this is what is it. Okay, it's going to happen. And then connection.on new order, what I'm going to do is that once the new order is received, I just want to show that new order has been received, right, to the other client. So let me run this here. Right. Okay. Fine. So I'll just go to the orders. Right. Create new. Okay, I'm connecting to this here. I'll just show you the things over there. Right. Okay. Hold it. I'm sorry here. I'll make that multiple startup. This is my multiple project because I have to start the function also. saving it, running this. Okay, so my function will start here. The function is going to start here, right? And then this is going to start my methods for performing an operations. I'll go to this orders here, right? Create new. I'll take you to the things right over here. So that the connections stop over there, right? What I'm going to do is that over here, I'll also go back to this Control C, right? And then here. Okay. Right. And then I'll go to develop over there, JavaScript console over here. So connection has been established successfully over here, right? This is the things. Okay. And then I'll have maybe ORT, whatever it is. Right. Okay, and now if I go back to this over here, so see that my other application is here, right? I have received the data on this, the other guy over here. I have received that. Okay, and now the thing is that if I take you to the database over there. Okay, this is it. I'm gonna run the query. The data is also there over here. This is what that data that has been received. So the thing is that my one connection, one client is sending the data and another client, right, which is, let's say that that particular client is my receiver over here. So I haven't changed the page for that receiver. So that's how it is been made available. So basically this is the serverless stuff over there. But my point, so that is how that you are gonna connect to that right over here. Now there are some questions which are asked. So Azure SignalR service right over here. So Rahul has asked me the question that SignalR different from the service bus. Let me tell you that service bus is basically we use it for enterprise messaging in offline mode also. So the data will be available over there into the service bus, and then unless and until the receiver is not subscribing to the SignalR, it will not be processed, right? Now the thing is that with the 100 unit over there, so now of course is that costing thing. As I told you that as per your requirement, you have to actually think of the cost part of that, right? Mahesh has asked the question that is it a good idea to implement notification in SignalR? Your ticketing system, we have notification like ticket assign, ticket close, etc. Okay, this is what that you're gonna have it that yes, as per your architecture, you can think of having the ticketing thing implemented over here with the help of an Azure SignalR. Any real-time communications, Azure SignalR is the best way of having the real-time communications like this. And in the very beginning of the session, I have I have already explained you about these things. Okay, right? So this is what the thing is that like if you want to know some more about me, you can very well connect me on my Sabnis_m at hotmail.com. Right? Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So let's wait for a minute if we have some more questions.
Do we have any more questions?
Any questions here, guys?
No, I think we don't have any questions. Thank you everyone for joining. This is going to be our next webinar in the on next Saturday, same time, 10:30 a.m. Where Dr. Paranspe is going to talk with you about artificial intelligence in Office 365. So please join us on Meetup RSVP. Also, feel free to share it with your friends, colleagues in your organization, so they can also enjoy the AI in Office 365. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.